Well, we all know that kidnappings are on the rise at the moment. The crime stats prove it, show that cases have risen by 445 between July and September. That's compared to the same period last year. Gauteng in the lead with a total of 729 cases. That's then followed with KZN, 407. So what is going on? How do we prevent getting into a situation like this? Let's speak to crime expert Kyle Condon joining us this morning. Hello to you, Kyle. It's always a pleasure to speak to an expert such as yourself about this, because there's a lot of misinformation out there about why a kidnapping takes place. Could we start there? Is there a pattern? Is there something that is normally a trigger that you can pick up on when a kidnapping might take place?
Yeah, firstly, morning, Gareth, and morning to your crew and the rest of the country watching the show. Look, we all know that there's been a sudden spate in kidnapping as a crime. I think the first thing one needs to realize is, much like COVID and your previous guest, it now seems to have no sort of social parameters or class, etc. It's become a crime that is now targeting from the rich to the poor. It's just the ransom amounts that differ. Which is making it very difficult to police to a large extent from a policing perspective, because it's a crime that's now affecting everybody. Whereas in the past, if we look at something like cash in transit, the task teams that were put together to fight these crimes and the units that were put together to fight these crimes, they knew then who they were looking after, they knew who they needed to focus on. It's now a free-for-all, if I can use that term, and the police are just unable to fight this problem, let's be honest. I'm appalled, to say the least, that I stand under correction here, but I have not yet heard the National Commissioner, Becky Tseli, say anything about these crimes and what they're doing about it. Yet we hear every day about an incident. So it looks to me like it's come down to families, individuals, ourselves, to look after ourselves.
So let's talk about that for a moment, Kyle, if we can. It was one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, originally you're right, that there would have been a perception that kidnappers would have gone after people with lots of money, big businesses, etc., family, wealth. But you're saying that it's non-discriminatory at this point. So someone at home watching you and I talk now, it could be a regular Joe Soap who could be kidnapped. So how do we try and protect ourselves? Are we doing something wrong that could make us an easy target? I immediately go to social media because we give so much away, don't we? We all pretend we have more money and we're more wealthy than we are. And that might be giving a false narrative. And someone might see that and think this could be a good target.
Oh, absolutely. I think you probably hit the nail on the head. I think with social media and the way that we like to portray ourselves, we're certainly giving or raising the stakes in terms of our risk profile. And I'm not going to attack the teenagers and the young, but, we see all the time on things like Twitter and Facebook, photographs of fancy cars, photographs of money and these type of things. And they may not be genuine. The problem is a kidnapper doesn't know that at the time. When they're these syndicates sitting in their groups, doing their planning, scanning the internet, looking for victims, they see these things. And to them, that draws them in, and you're already there, start to become a focus of their attention. So number one is putting out whether you've got the money, whether you don't, is irrelevant. Don't come across as you do is probably the secret to this all. But the sad fact is it doesn't just come down to money. I mean, my firm has been inundated with situations and helping out. And I'm talking about in low or poor income areas, townships, where kidnappings occurring on weekends are in abundance. And for small amounts, I'm talking about 2,000 Rand, 5,000 Rand. And it's as easy as picking up a kid off the street, holding him or her for a couple of hours, telling the parents to do an e-wallet transfer for a small amount, and the kid just puts it back on the street thereafter.
Kyle, let me come in there quickly. I want to ask you this because one of the questions I wanted to ask you before I let you go is, speaking to an expert like yourself who deals with this, especially now at these, let's call it lower demand kidnappings. I'm trying to find a sensitive way of saying this. I hope that wasn't too bad. What does a family do if they do find that maybe their little one has vanished and they need to get hold of someone like you? What is the first thing a family should do when they get hold of a company like yours. Just before I say goodbye to you, what's the best behavior for a family? What should they be doing?
Well, the first thing is, the family needs to act immediately. I don't think, the days of waiting 48 hours and the stories you get given by the police, your local police station, they don't cut it anymore with a missing person. A missing person, to me now, is an extreme situation. So if you don't have the support or trust of your local police station, then you need to move into the private sector. It is unfortunate, but that's the way it has become. And that's where you need to reach out to companies like myself, and there's a good few of them, who specialize in assisting not only with the investigation, but then with helping with the police to try and orchestrate the process going forward. And if there's a negotiation, a professional negotiator needs to be brought in. This is not something to be left to amateurs.
I couldn't agree with you more. Kyle Condon, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. A sudden spate of kidnappings, and as you hear, you suspect that your youngster or a family member has been kidnapped. Obviously, the old adage was wait for 48 hours. The point is now is to act as quickly as you can, but not to overreact. You get hold of experts like Kyle Condon, but of course, you make contact with the police as well. They'll do the best they can, I'm sure, as quickly as they can. Crime expert Kyle Condon joining us here on eNCA.